What can you promise them today that they could gain if they gave us their time?
I think that once you own your brain, you can own your life. So yeah, if you learn how to control your mind, you can control your life. Taking a business from zero and now having 3 international businesses that's global, I made a decision that I was going to be a doctor, and I wasn't just going to be a doctor, I was going to be a doctor that was going to change the world. And fortunately today, that's what I'm here to do.
I love that. How the mapping of the brain for Elon Musk. How is your heart?
I'm an emotional guy, man. I do not like to see people suffer. So like walking into the Dubai Mall, seeing the kid in a wheelchair and looking at the mom's face pushing, that right there's my drive. 2 parts of your brain. So what's happened is if this goes down, your immune system can go down. So you look at Elon Musk, people can say, how in the world can this guy basically own everything? And if you look at Elon, he does not have hardly any facial tone on his right side of his face.
Dr. Daigle with us, an alpha visionary in the realm of functional neurology, a field where cutting-edge science meets the healing art to redefine what it means to achieve true wellness. For people to take care of their brains, what are the practical advices?
I would say,
Welcome back, Alpha Squad, to another inspiring episode of the Alpha Talks show, the #1 fastest growing show in the region. We're thrilled to have Dr. Daigle with us, an alpha visionary in the realm of functional neurology, a field where cutting-edge science meets the healing art to redefine what it means to achieve true wellness. Hailing from the vibrant landscape of Louisiana, Dr. Daigle is not just a neurologist, correct, but a trailblazer who has immersed traditional healthcare with innovative neurological therapies to treat complex health issues. His approach is not about quick fixes, but fostering deep, lasting healing, making him a beacon for those seeking alternatives to conventional medicine. As a published author, international speaker, and a co-owner of NeuroSolutions, Dr. Kyle brings a unique perspective on how to nurture the body, innate ability to heal itself. Today we will delve deep into his holistic techniques, explore the pillars of his practice, and hear firsthand about the transformations he facilitated in his patients' lives. So get ready to be inspired by a leader who's not only pushing the boundaries of healthcare, but also teaching the world how to cultivate a more harmonious relationship with our body and mind. So Kyle, it's a pleasure to have you here today. It's an absolutely new topic for me, an absolutely new, I would say, industry for me and for the Alpha Talks. So it's a pleasure to have you today, and welcome to the Alpha Talks.
Thank you so much.
So are you ready to rock it?
Ready to roll.
Yeah. We have a very interesting question in the beginning of the episode, which I usually ask. Once we publish the episode, people will see the thumbnail, the graphics, the title, and they will see, oh, that's an interesting episode. What can you promise them today that they could gain if they gave us their time? I can say a lot because we had a lovely chat before.
I think that once you own your brain, you can own your life. And that's someone who has even terminal cancer. You're a business guy trying to make $1 billion. You're a parent trying to search for answers on how to actually help your kid maybe potentially speak, which I know is a huge thing in this region.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you learn how to control your mind, you can control your life.
Wow. I'm super interested and excited to get started. I have a lot of questions. I want answers to it. And super interested to share with the audience the knowledge and wisdom that you have in an area that I believe the region is still doesn't know much about it. So let's start. Who's Kyle from your perspective?
Oof.
But not the one that I read on the internet, on digital.
So, Kyle was a kid who was super sick his entire life, got diagnosed with ADHD, had speech difficulties. But deep down inside, I knew that one day I could, be the alpha, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I learned a lot about adversity, struggles, therapy. And then I discovered personal development, goal setting, writing down goals, trying to visualize. But the one thing is I'm an ex-college athlete, and in that, you got to have grit.
True. So
in doing that, and what I've basically spent my whole life and career is, when you create something new, you got to have thick skin. And, from a business perspective, I've been able to build 3 international businesses, and learning the traffic, learning the adversity that it takes I would say that, I'm not invincible, but I do know that there's really not much that I can't basically take on.
I love your journey, but I'm super interested. What made you choose this journey? What inspired you?
Yeah, so my little brother actually is why I'm here today, sitting here. So my brother actually had a medical procedure, and we were on the way home, and he started having seizures in the car. And I yelled at my mom. My brother's having a seizure. She turns around. My brother's blue. She flipped this little Honda Civic, literally like drove straight through this median grass in a Honda Civic. Go to the hospital. My brother got diagnosed with bacterial meningitis and almost died. So I watched him for 6 weeks in an ice bath. And I watched my mom and dad praying, crying, because the doctor said this doesn't look good. And I watched the 6th week. I watched this doctor walk in and looked at my dad, who was my superhero, and he says, "Hey, your son's going to be okay. He made it." And my dad grabbed this doctor and broke down in tears. And I stood there and I was like, I want to be that guy one day.
Oof.
So 2nd grade, I made a decision that I was going to be a doctor, and I wasn't just going to be a doctor. I was going to be a doctor that was going to change the world. And fortunately today, that's what I'm here to do.
Oof, I love that. A quick note, before we jump into this episode, I find this incredibly intriguing. On the back end of our YouTube channel, it says around 75% of you who watch this channel frequently over the lifetime of this channel haven't yet hit the subscribe button. I just wanted to ask you for a favor. It helps this channel so much if you choose to just subscribe. It helps us invite guests that give you great value. It helps us scale the production, and as well makes this show bigger and bigger for you. So if I will ask you just one favor, and if you enjoyed the previous episodes and you're currently enjoying this episode, could you please hit the subscribe button? I love your support. It's incredible to see all your comments and engagement, and we are just starting. I can't wait to go on this journey with you. Thank you so much, and I will repay this gesture by making sure that everything we do on this show makes it bigger, bigger, and better. I'm committed to do this promise. Do we have a deal? Thank you so much for subscribing. It means the world to me. You started by saying controlling your brains, it controls your life. But I want to go a little bit backwards for the people who don't understand or not super familiar with the terminologies that we're going to talk about today. Within your areas of expertise, what is being a doctor in this kind of field? What do you do? What exactly? Neurology. What does it mean? It's like the veins, the brain waves, in a very nutshell for people just to understand, and we'll dig it deep.
All right, so every case, so I created NeuroSolution, so the brain's the solution.
Yeah.
The brain controls the immune system. The brain controls your heart rate, your breathing, your mood, your sleep, controls your muscle functions, how you get rid of pain. So in saying that, the brain controls everything. So every aspect of your day-to-day is controlled by the brain.
Okay.
So what I've been able to do is actually start from a 10,000-foot view looking at the human body. So let's say you had knee pain, right?
Okay.
You're going to go maybe to your doctor, you might go to physio, maybe go to massage therapist. But what if that pain doesn't go away? All right? You've taken medications, you've done the treatments, the therapy. Pain's not going away. So that's where I step in and I go and look at the brain, and I'm able to see, because your brain controls every single muscle, every region in your body is controlled by the brain.
Okay.
I look at the activity of what that part of the brain looks like. And from that, I can figure out all the different wires and networks that come from these areas of the brain. I can figure out maybe this area of the brain is underactive. And this is why it's not the fact that the therapist and the treatment wasn't working, is the fact that there's some things going on inside the brain. Now, what could have happened is where we kind of got into earlier is infections. And
can I ask a question before we move towards this?
Absolutely.
What do you mean I can read your brains? Or can I check your brains?
Okay.
Look at your brains? How does it physically
Okay,
look like?
so I do something called EEGs.
Okay.
So it's basically, it's these little caps, these little leads that we put on the head, the scalp. And what it does is it reads the electrical activity in the form of waves.
Okay.
So you have something called brain waves. So when you go to sleep at night, you go into something called a delta wave. Then you have, when you first wake up, you're kind of tired. That's a theta brainwave. And you have another brainwave called alpha, which is where a lot of people are kind of getting into meditation and manifesting. And then you have what we're in right now, which is called beta. Beta is when you're alert. And you have another brainwave called high beta, which is when you get stressed out, financial problems, business problems, marital problems. And then you have gamma, which is like ultimate performance, like athletic performance. So what I'm able to do is each of these waves function off of certain numbers. And over different areas of the scalp, I'm actually see exactly from 1 hertz all the way to 45 hertz. I can actually see what's going on inside your brain in terms of function. Are you tired in this area? Can this area relax? Can this area learn? Can this area be alert? Is this area stressed out? And can this area perform if you had to basically,
Lovely. That's
play
done
sports?
on a period of time, or like how to read all the brain waves, like over 24 hours, or but you can forecast how the brain would operate for a particular activity, for example.
Yeah, so we like to kind of test. So there's multiple ways to do EEGs. There's 24-hour EEGs. I have some incredible software coming out of South Korea that it's an AI that reads all your brain waves, and it spits out this incredible report that I can actually see. You have your left side of your brain, you have your right side of your brain, and I can see every function into normative data, how active your brain is, if it's underactive or it's hyperactive. So literally the whole entire area, every part of your brain, I can actually literally look at the energy and what it's functioning at. Is it normal, low, high? So I can actually do this. It's about anywhere between 10 and 30 minutes of you sitting down. We do 2 types of tests. One's eyes open. Okay. So your brain processes all this information, right? So we can see how your brain functions in processing, and then we have you close your eyes. So we'll actually get a quantitative data of a data set of your eyes open and eyes closed. We get this incredible report, and then it throws out a 3D figure, so you can actually see if your brain is normal, if it's underactive, if it's hyperactive, and then we can actually quantify as to what's going on inside the brain.
That's very interesting. Then now you've seen the brain, the waves. What affects the brains? So there is a knee problem. There is, I would say, like manifestation problem, imagination problem, whatever it is. Take me through the steps and how can we go back and fix these kind of brain waves?
Okay, so we'll kind of go from the assessment. So from the assessment standpoint, you want to talk about manifesting. There's incredible books out there. Silva Method. This guy is incredible, teaching people how to get into an alpha brainwave state, right? So what's happening is alpha runs from about 8 to 13 hertz. So I can actually physically look at your entire brain and I can say, look, you can't manifest or you can't actually meditate because your right frontal lobe, it's underactive. You can't get into these brain waves. Okay. So then the question is, well, how do I do it? This is for the biohackers out there. There's incredible devices. One of my favorite things to do is something called PEMF, pulse electromagnetic frequencies. You can actually wear headbands and you can literally control from magnets that actually produce brain waves. And you can literally physically target these areas of the brain. And then you could even combine it even using acoustics, right? So if you take a bowl and you literally put sound, what happens is sound travels, right?
Yeah, true.
Okay, well, your skull literally is in the shape of a bone. Yeah, in a bowl. And you can use sound to influence it. But then if you hit it from the top down, which is this PMF device, you can target this area, turn on your alpha waves, and then now this area that was underactive is now active. So that's one really cool way. Okay. When you look at like pain regulation, so from research and I've seen clinically, but there's 2 brain waves, theta and alpha waves, actually can dampen your pain response.
But let's go a little bit one step back. For people want to understand, like, okay, I can't manifest or meditate because alpha brain waves. What's an alpha brain wave? What?
Okay, so alpha brain waves is going to be from 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 hertz. Okay, so what it is basically brain waves can be converted down into sound waves. Okay, so this is why you can go to YouTube and you see like meditation music, right?
True.
Okay, or you might see binaural beats. True. People are listening to frequencies to try to alter the brainwave activity.
Okay, that's...
So you can use sound that can actually influence the brain. So think about this. I always joke around when I tell people when in a very basic concept, I know in the States, You go to a wedding, right? And all of a sudden, there's no one on the dance floor. You got music playing, but you have that one person that gets out on the dance floor. And then before you know it, the whole group, everyone's out there dancing and having a good time. Okay, it's called coherence, right? So if I walked in here and I had like a bad negative energy, you're not going to want to talk to me, right? But if I'm coming here talking, you want to basically talk to me. So when you basically get people in the same wavelength,
Mirroring.
exactly right, mirroring. So that's what happens with the brain, is that if the left and the right side of the brain can mirror each other, right, you can get ultimate performance or even alpha performance of the brain.
Wow.
But if you're missing one side, now you're seeing that you only have this one side, which is go, which means that you can't self-regulate yourself.
Very, very interesting.
Or you see the opposite side where, there's men out there that they want to be an alpha, but they just don't, they don't know what it is, man. They just don't have the energy. Well, what's happening is it's actually a deficit in the brain. The left frontal lobe is your go. This is what's going to be your alpha. Your right frontal lobe is going to be your break. So when you look at these guys that do business, you see two different types. You have the guy who's going to be the CEO, who's going to make anything happen. He's not going to sleep. He might stay up for 3-4 days. And you have the other guy who gets upset and he shuts down and he disappears, right?
True.
And it's not that person, but what's happening is that's all the brain.
Function?
That's a brain function.
Oof.
And I can actually quantify that because I can scan your brain. But this is even cool, is that not only do I scan the brain, I actually study the eyes. And I study the pupils, your pupils, the black in your eye. I study the dilation of them.
Okay.
And I study how your eyes move. Because when your eyes move, it activates different parts of your brain. So when I'm looking at trying to build a brain with someone who has like a severe traumatic brain injury coming out of a coma, I have to build the brain, the functions. So I got to have a map of the brain, and then I have to know exactly how the wires are to the brain.
Like from the eyes, from the nose, from.
Exactly
I have
right.
a very interesting question here, because people watching us will say, okay, you identified, I would say, like the deficit in some part of the brains. Can we fix it?
Yes,
Is it fixable?
correct. So this is the cool thing about the brain.
Okay.
They say we only know about 10% of our brain. I'd say this, or people say, neuroplasticity, it stops at the age of 24. And I say, all right,
Yes.
well, I disagree with people who say that, because a 98-year-old woman who's in decent shape wants to play tennis. She never picked up a tennis racket. She grabs a tennis racket and she starts literally every single day practicing tennis. Guess what happens? She's going to acquire tennis skills to be able to have the brain muscle memory components that play tennis. So that's a neuroplasticity at 98 years of age.
True.
So the whole thing here is that you find a deficit in the brain, and you, through repetition in time, you work on building these pathways, and you can build any parts of the brain that you want. And the cool thing about the brain is I work with people with something called diffuse axonal injury, which is where they're shearing in the brain.
Okay.
And these patients typically are told, hey, look, you're stuck in a chair. There's no quality of life. That family doesn't want to hear that, nor does that person. So my job is to basically, what wires together, fires together. I start basically stimulating the brain. But the cool thing about the brain is that I found out ways to use sound waves and also light to actually start to take networks that were basically sheared and actually start building them together. And I repetitively fire them. So, you want to be 98 and you want to still hustle.
Exactly.
It's all up to you and the repetition and time you're going to do.
And possible.
Possible.
Let's move towards the pain part, because there is one thing that is I want to develop in a direction, and the second part, if I'm having a physical pain which is severe, how it is connected to the brain.
Okay. So let's just say this. Let's say that someone had a knee injury.
Okay.
And nothing worked, right? So they did all the treatment, took all the prescription drugs. They amputate the leg. They still have pain, right? So there's something called the central origin of pain, which is actually located in different regions in the brain. So the brain's really cool. You have this one area in the very back. It's called the parietal lobe. This is the map of like your whole body. Then you have another area called the basal ganglia. And this area actually literally pushes the brake on pain. So through research, they've shown that all pain, regardless of where it's at in the body, has actually shifted a focus. We call it neurology lateralization, all to the right side of the brain. So in saying that, then there's central origins. Other than that, there's actually an area where your eyes are. It's called the midbrain. There's an area that controls pain there. There's an area actually where your face is. There's an area in the brainstem called the pons. There's another central origin of pain there. And then there's an area where it's called the vagus nerve. A lot of biohackers found out about the vagus nerve. And these are 3 areas in an area called the brainstem that regulate pain. And these all can be triggered through stimulating the face.
And if you check these, you can fix the pain in the knee, for example.
Correct.
You've told me that. Can you share with us like success stories like that? It's a jaw dropping.
Yeah. So, I actually did a research project at Queen Victoria Hospital in London, and I did it with the British Army. And these are guys that had phantom limb pain. So guys who literally had their legs amputated. No pain medication, even something called a spinal cord stimulator, which is where they put this surgical implantation device in the spine. Still running basically a 10 out of 10 pain. Like this is like pain that, it's like childbearing pain. I was able actually in 5 days, and this is actually on YouTube, people that want to go to my YouTube channel and see, was actually able to take one of the head guys for the British Army Amputee Organization, literally in 5 days, had this guy putting a prosthetic limb on his leg, literally phantom limb, walking. Now, this sounds crazy, but you go look at a bunch of my cases on Instagram or YouTube, you can see complex regional pain syndrome. It's like equivalent of childbirth. I've been able to successfully help out a lot of patients with that over the last 14 years. But the cool thing is that it's all based in the brain. Now, there's another aspect for those of you people that are searching into functional medicine and like stuff like that, is that I found that there could be underlying infections that could also be blocking parts of the brain. And one of the places that I found was actually through the sinuses.
Okay.
And what we're seeing a lot of times when I look at like an MRI of someone's brain, I can see that there's actually inflammation or even something called colonization, white spots in the sinuses. Now the problem is this is an ENT problem, not a neurologist, quote unquote, if you're a specialist, right? But when you take a 10,000 foot view, anything impacts the brain. So a lot of these patients, and you see it here in the Middle East, everyone's got tissues, people are sneezing, allergies. What's happening is there's up to 57,000 potential infections in the nose.
Say it again, 50,000?
57,000 potential infections inside the nose. And anything in the nose, right? You smell coffee, right? Boom, it's coffee.
Yeah.
Straight into the brain. So what we're finding is, and again, I run so many labs, but there's literally blood work that we can run and say, hey, look, you can't get rid of pain. You did all the best therapists, seen all the best doctors. You got an infection in your nose that's literally blocking a receptor site, which is literally, a receptor is basically like if you take this coffee right here, and here's like the little opening right here, this would be a receptor. We're finding infections that are literally blocking this right here. So the brain itself can't inhibit the pain. And these are these patients, and I feel for these patients, these are the patients that have tried morphine, fentanyl, Seroquel, Dilaudid. Pain doesn't work. No narcotic works because there's an infection blocking the receptor in the brain that gets rid of pain. And it's coming from the nose.
So now you're saying that the nose has a big impact on the brain.
1,000%.
Wow.
1,000%.
I think nobody ever thought about it. And if I want to go backwards a little bit and say, for example, after I'm watching this episode and I still don't know, when should I knock your door? So should I knock your door when I have pain? Or should I knock your door as a doctor, as a clinic? What should I feel?
Okay, so I see really everything because I have high-level business executives that, they acquired all this wealth and they want to live as long as they possibly can, so they want to be mentally sharp. So I work with professional athletes, Olympic athletes. These are guys who just want to be on top of their game, right? They want that competitive edge. My job, regardless if you came in here who you had back pain, knee pain, brain injury, you were in like organ failure, I see the full spectrum, everything from literally a baby that literally just came out of the NICU to a 98-year-old woman. So I see the whole thing because the brain controls everything. And so everyone wants to be on top tier. So, my preference would actually be taking someone who doesn't have as strong of the different ailments and issues, but You know, if that is a person out there who's got they've seen 40 plus doctors and are looking for an answer, I'm your guy.
The question, it's more about the lifestyle thing, which is an ongoing, or it's kind of a transactional thing. I go fix something and I'm done.
Yeah, well, the brain's always evolving. So this is what happens. If you want to get ultimate peak performance, then I'm a guy that can always basically, I can check and say, hey, look, this part of the brain's not working, which, by the way, this is really interesting. You know, the brain controls the immune system. So there's actually two parts of your brain. So the left frontal lobe controls how you fight off infections, even how there's something called tumor necrosis factor. Everyone's scared of cancer, right? Yeah. Well, the brain actually controls literally a part of the immune system that knocks out tumor necrosis factor, which actually literally fights off infections or even helps suppress tumors. The right side of the brain controls inflammation, allergies, autoimmune issues. So what's happened is if this goes down, your immune system can go down.
Exactly.
So you don't have any issues. You want to come see me just because you want to maybe manifest, or you want to be able to go to sleep at night. I can look at your brain and I can say, look, there's probably an infection. This area of the brain, you're not regulating your pain. You can't turn this area of the brain off, which is why you're perseverating and you literally, you get anxiety and you can't stop, right? The brain's the tell. So for me, it's just look at the brain. I was mentioning earlier, you don't even have to tell me your symptoms. I can literally evaluate your brain, look at it, and literally walk in there and tell you this is what's going on inside your body.
I love that. Let's say you looked at my brain and we find some deficits in different areas. What the types of treatments? Like, are they like drug-based, or it's like wave sound? What kind of treatments?
So we do it all, man. So I have a neurologist, internal medicine doctor, nurse practitioners, PTs, OTs, speech therapists. So we have the full gamut. We might run peptides. So we might do peptides. We might do exosomes. We do PRPs. We do a procedure called V-cells where we take your blood, spin it, and hit it with a laser. Nutritional supplementation, pharmacology. And then we do a lot of stuff. So I do a lot of work with the eyes, do a lot of eye movement therapy. We actually work on trying to get the black dot in your eye, the pupil. We actually try to get that symmetrical. We check all your senses. If you don't use it, you lose it. A lot of people don't realize that, they maybe can't smell, or maybe they can't smell out of one nostril. And it's so important when you look at like ADD. Yeah. So attention deficit disorders, hyperactivity. Really what it is it's abnormal brain waves. So the thing is the brain's not taking adequate sensory information. You might see better than one eye, or hear better than one ear, or smell better at one nostril. What about the other side? It's underactive. So the only way the human brain develops and learns is by basically stimulation from the environment. But if the environment basically isn't symmetrically stimulating the brain, that in itself is going to cause abnormal activity in the brain, and I can detect where the deficit sense is.
I love that. Somebody's listening to us or watching us now and said, like, oh, that's interesting. So everything is controlled by your brain and I can manage it. So I'll come to Kyle and say, like, look, Kyle, I think you know how the mapping of the brain for Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Map it for me.
All right. So I'll tell you about Elon Musk.
Yeah.
So when I look at people, the first thing I do is I actually study their facial features.
You're the only, I would love to say, alpha guest that I had that kept a straight eye contact with me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's why, like,
oh, well.
Yeah, absolutely. Which means that you're trying to read me 100%.
Yeah. So this is what happens. So the first thing is when you want to look at someone, you look at their face and you're going to look at their pupils. Okay. And so above the pupil, there's this little thing called the eyelid, right? Yeah. So that right there, you want to have both sides symmetrical. And if not, if you see that one eyelid slightly, that's a weak nerve, right? Okay. Because that's a muscle. So what I do is I basically start from looking at your eyes and I work myself all the way down to looking at it's called nasolabial fold, these lines on your face, right? So women think that it's the bad side of the face because they got better tone here. Yeah. It's actually a neurological deficit. That's actually the brain is not sending enough of energy to actually control the muscle tone in the face.
To that level.
To that level. Then you actually have head tilt. So the brain typically will tilt. It's to the weaker side. So like I have a right head tilt. Had a very bad brain injury. So when you look at people and you see them like this, that's a sign that the brain itself is not self-regulating this little thing in the inner ear to control the postural muscles. So it's really cool because when I show up
Absolutely.
yeah. So, but that's one thing. So when you look at Elon Musk, this guy has got a incredible frontal lobe, both sides, but predominantly the left. So your left frontal lobe is your gas pedal. That's your academic. That's math. That's numbers. That literally has a lot of dopamine, right? So you look at Elon Musk, people can say, how in the world can this guy basically own everything, right?
True.
And if you look at Elon, he does not have hardly any facial tone on his right side of his face. And he's got a slight right head tilt.
True.
And if you actually watch Elon walk, his right foot slightly flares out to the right. And if you look at his right shoulder, it's internally rotated.
Exactly.
I studied him.
Yeah.
And
exactly. True.
it's interesting, but if you can look at someone, because again, the brain controls muscle function. So when you start seeing posture alterations, that's the brain controlling basically a nerve and a nerve to a muscle. So my job is basically to figure out where everything's weak. So yeah, so Elon, if I were to actually do, there's something called a DTI, which is this scan that literally evaluates your brain and it shows you all these pathways. You would see that Elon's left frontal lobe is
Firing.
like lit up like a Christmas tree.
Firing.
It's so red.
Yeah.
And you would see like this little right side up in the front would be like quite a bit underactive, which is why the guy can't stop. You know, he made all this money. He's not going to stop, right? Money doesn't drive him.
True.
It's, you know, making an impact.
Can you light up a particular part in the brain?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So there's lots of ways. So I love physics, right? So Nikola Tesla, if you guys probably know Nikola Tesla. All right. So you have light, sound, vibration, magnetism. So the brain itself, literally you can use light. So people are using like red light, right?
Okay.
So you can use red light literally on that area of the brain. You know, I have a laser company, with laser my partner and I made. We actually not only do use lasers, we actually have the beams carrying light waves with specific frequencies. So I can actually say, hey, look, there's no gamma in this area of the brain, and I can literally laser that part of the brain with gamma brain waves. The other thing is electrical currents. So you can actually use something called transcranial direct. Literally, you can put a little lead on, literally use electrical stimulation to activate that. Magnets, PMF device, you can put it on. So there's ways that you can actually go specifically to an area of the brain and modulate it, as we call it. So it's called, you know, people that are listening, it's called neuro-modulation, basically altering the brain.
That's beyond belief. Beyond. So since you stopped the eye contact with me, so it means that you did your research, got the results. What is the result?
Yeah, well, look, I think I can tell you one thing about you. So all alphas are going to typically be super strong left frontal lobe guys. So what these guys are not going to be able to do is inhibit, right? Which inhibit is basically slow down. If I were to say, hey, look, let's go to Fiji, let's go lay on a beach, hang out, read a book, right? You're not going to want to do that, right?
Absolutely.
No, you're going to want to hustle, man. You're going to want to go build, create, and that's what you're designed to do, right? That's what all your networks in your brain from you've been a little kid, that's what you built. You're not designed to basically go sit on a floaty and have umbrella drinks.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, you want to build, you want to create.
Well, it's very interesting. Now you have, I would say, like the company that you built over neuroscience,
NeuroSolution.
NeuroSolutions. What kind of, in a nutshell, for the people watching us, what kind of services you actually offer?
Okay, so we do regenerative medicine. So people that want to do exosomes, longevity, peptides, IV hydration. So that's kind of like the biohacking side from a medical standpoint. Then we go into, I have this really cool device called the gyrostim. It looks like in the States, they train the military in. So what we do is we put you in this device and we start spinning you in different directions, backwards, forwards. And what you have to do is you have to take a laser and you have to hit targets as you're basically going through. So we're basically spinning you, but we're also trying to get your brain to make your eyes move to the opposite side. And what it does is it actually enhances your peripheral vision. And so the more that your brain can see, right, the more that your brain can process information. So that's a big thing is I'm into sensory processing because if you're a business executive, you know, you got a lot on your plate. You know, you might have 20,000 employees and, you know, projects building. The brain's got to process all this information. But then eventually people reach burnout, right?
True.
So burnout is whenever the brain basically gets so fired up that it literally basically fatigues out. So what I'm able to do is to actually find the area of the brain and actually work on strengthening how the brain can actually inhibit because that person can't sleep at night.
Of course.
And that's not a good thing because the whole purpose of sleep is for your brain to restore. So I do eye movement therapy. We do balance therapy. So we actually check your equilibrium. People who get like vertigo or dizziness. We do physical therapy, vibration therapy. Trying to think of what else. Primitive reflex. Yeah, we do a lot of work. But we have the full. I would say this, like, people go into wellness centers and they're phenomenal. We do wellness centers on steroids.
Mm-hmm. I totally feel it. What is the most, I would say, client or patient you had that made you so proud?
Man, I would say probably the coolest thing. I wrote a book. I'm a father. I got 2 kids, and I wrote a book on how to help an autistic kid find their hidden voice, how to speak. Yeah. And I think that that's probably the most impactful thing, is to be able to watch a little kid say, you know, I love you, Mom. I love you, Dad. You know, I wrote a 17-chapter book. Took me 5 years to write it. But yeah, I wrote a whole book over the brain and what's going on in these kids that are nonverbal. That right there is probably the coolest thing. And then I do work with a lot of seizures. You know, it's pretty debilitating with people with seizures. And I've taken people from 300 to 500 seizures a day that mean that they're literally, they're only conscious 20% of the day, and having people actually having normal lives after something that's traumatic. So yeah, that, and then
so fulfilling, I believe.
It is. And I'd say another cool thing is spinal cord injuries. I've actually successfully been able to help patients who were told they're never going to walk again from a spinal cord injury, have these videos and these guys actually physically walking. So
super impactful.
Well, you know, this is the thing about the brain, is that, you know, my goal is, hopefully in this whole podcast, is just for people out there that, you know, is just don't give up, man. Is that, you know, we're here to help people out if they're willing to try that out. But the brain's all about knowing exactly where to target it, and repetition and time, and, you know.
But if I ask you, like, just for, you know, in life, there are people who are able to spend on such things, and there are people who are not. What kind of price tickets we're talking about?
So, you know, US dollars, you're looking at an average of about $12,000 a week is what it costs to see us. That's just physical treatment. That's not any of the labs. Yeah. And then you start getting into, you know, it gets expensive when you start getting to exosomes and stem cells and stuff like that. But, you know, at a high level, we could go all the way up to about 45,000, you know, on an average on a week, depending on if people want to really go after all the top enhancements. But yeah, 12,500 US dollars is normally what a week of therapy. And the reason why we say a week, we do something called an intensive. So an intensive is, if you really want to make a change in the brain, it's going to take me 16 to typically 20 hours of nonstop stimulation and literally 1 week to turn on networks. So we have people that fly in and see us, whether they spend 1 week, 6 weeks with us. But yeah, that's how we don't do the typical like 3 times a week like people do in physical therapy. Now we have like people that want to come in periodically and do like enhancements. Someone will fly in for a day, but it takes me pretty much 4 hours just to kind of figure out from all the diagnostics on what I'm going to do to basically enhance your brain.
Kind of very interesting thing as well. We know a lot of like the top CEOs, executives, celebrities. They take care of their health. Like they go to gym, they spend on gym. They take care of their beauty in a way or another. Like Botox, Motox, whatever it is. But we never heard that these type of people take care of their brain. So can you give us like, it is part of their routine that they take care of their brains in that, I would say, way?
Yeah. I mean, I work with a lot of family offices. So, I mean, I treat a lot of high net worth billionaires that fly in. And, you know, I see what happens. I see young guys, and then I see the old guys that now have Parkinson's disease, because what happened is no one fixed the underlying issue that was going on. True. And they reach the burnout stage, and now they can't control their arm, right? So they're doing public speaking, and they're sitting here like they can't even hold the mic because they're shaking so bad.
Oof. For the people, I want you to give a couple of advices for people to take care of their brains, since it is the most, I would say, important thing. What are the practical advices? I
would say, you know, from a diet perspective, we'll kind of work our way up. So diet, I believe that low carb diets are incredible for people that want to preserve the brain, because so like dementia, even Alzheimer's, that's actually all coming from the gut-brain connection.
Okay.
Right? So low carb diets are phenomenal if you want to really be in like really top good shape with brain health. The other thing is actually, which is kind of hard in this region, but seasonal eating. You really want to eat within foods within seasons. Yes, this is crazy. This is
Very
actually, this is guys, they're called mitochondriacs, people that are trying to like preserve their energy. You could literally have an adverse reaction to eating certain foods. For example, like a pineapple from Hawaii that was flown in, and you're eating that in the wintertime. Our bodies weren't designed to basically eat.
No way.
Yes, it's crazy.
And it really has an effect.
Correct. The other thing I would like to highlight is hydration. Hydration's huge. Water, but not only water, there's something called deuterium depleted water. It's actually a heavy metal that's present in water. And you can Google research this. 10 to 15 ppms, deuterium depleted water, actually reduces cancer rates. Yeah, so it's actually a heavy metal in water.
Okay.
And when you go to look, it's $15 for a bottle of this water, but deuterium depleted water is unbelievable. The other thing is guys that have issues with sleep, a big whole thing is actually the circadian rhythm. Okay, so the sunrise and sunsets, right? It's huge. It's huge to try to watch sunrises and sunsets. And what it does for the brain is it actually can help fight off anxiety, depression, and definitely help out with restoring sleep.
So watching the sunset, watching the sunrise.
It's unbelievable. Now, for the guys out there that are like, look, I'm on jets, I can't do it. There's actually circadian rhythm sticks, light sticks, that you can actually, let's say that, I wake up at 3 a.m., so I'm one of these guys, but I can literally artificially stimulate my brain through different, basically, all the lights that come from the sunrise, and then you can actually calm your brain down through sunsets. So that's huge. I'm a very big fan of blue light blocking glasses. I think that people don't realize the impact that light can have on the brain. And I always tell people, look, if you don't believe this, all you do is watch a movie, and when someone's in a coma, what does the neurologist do? They shine a light in your eye and see the pupil constricts.
Exactly.
Right? The other thing is sunlight. So Albert Einstein, this is really wild for the guys out there. So there's an equation, E equals MC squared, right?
Exactly.
I'm going to break it down from my perspective.
Okay.
Energy equals mass of every single cell in your body, which means literally your whole entire body. C squared is the speed of light, but it's not just light. It's the diversity of colors.
True.
All right. So as a human being, we're only exposed to typically one color, and it's blue. And when you look at the color spectrum,
It is.
so it's called Roy G. Biv, right? So blue's way down here, red's way up here. And this is why you're seeing this like crazy big boost of people using red light.
True.
And people are benefiting. They're like, oh my gosh, my inflammation's down. I'm sleeping better. My pain's going down. I feel more alert, right? And what's happening is back to E equals MC squared. What's happening is now this person is exposing the brain, right? The brain learns off of everything. The brain's now getting a different color.
True.
Red. And red is actually very healing and therapeutic. So I'm a very big fan of people for photobiomodulation, which is red light therapy. You want to biohack, you want to be an alpha, cold plunges first thing in the morning, increases your dopamine levels 250%. That's massive.
True.
It's massive, 250%. We have Parkinson's patients, people that tremor. Literally, I tell them, hey, look, cheap, easy, do a cold plunge first thing in the morning, watch what happens to your tremor. Slows it down. Because they're tremoring because the brain doesn't have enough of dopamine.
Wow.
Yes. The other thing I would say is probably the coolest biohacking tip that I can give you guys is PMF. And there's devices. My favorite one is a company called Neorhythm. It's a white headband.
That's the alpha wave thing, right?
Yes, and you can literally biohack your brainwave. So, dude, I'm in and out like every month. I could be in the States, I could be in London, I could be in Croatia, I could be in Sydney, back in the States, here in Dubai, rotating back and forth. This is in my bag nonstop. And so what it is it's this little device, literally from your app. It's got a selection of different brainwaves. You can help induce yourself to go to sleep at night. So there's actually a delta wave, theta wave. Just before I actually came in here, because I'm still kind of, I just got back from the States. Literally, I pop this in. I do energy vitality, give my brain gamma waves. It alerts me, boom, and I can perform. After this, if I get too worked up or have to drink a bunch of caffeine, I can calm myself down, put myself into a theta brainwave, which then is going to basically allow me to go to the next brainwave with delta and go to sleep.
My God. Is there any side effects for that, or overusing it, or over being exposed to it?
Well, PMF, yeah, I think that PMF devices, like I wouldn't suggest running, 8 hours a day of PMF, especially on the brain. So these things run in typically 20 to 30 minute kind of sessions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any? I'm sure there are a lot of misconception in what you're doing. What is the biggest couple of misconceptions that you want to like get rid of it? Enough, guys. I'm tired of hearing it.
This is the thing is that I got really thick skin. So I actually appreciate haters. It actually kind of juices me up.
True.
So the more people hate on me, it's like I know I'm making an impact.
Yeah, exactly.
So I kind of like that. The other thing is I feel that people are into conformity, right? Everyone always follows what everyone else does. So when you're looking at health, everyone's all doing the same thing.
Go run. For
Exactly
example,
right. I'm on the opposite end. So if everyone's going right, I want to know why no one's going left, and I'm going to go left because I want to see exactly what people are scared of.
True.
So in saying that, I think that education is out there. The challenging thing in science is that there's always a right and a wrong. There's always good and bad. So it turns into an internal, you have to do your own homework. And yeah.
What brings you to Dubai?
Man, the vision of the leadership here, these guys want to be number one in healthcare. And I personally believe that what we have is going to be the future of healthcare and changing hospitals. So I'm here to basically show that show what we can do, get results, and then it's actually go and start building hospitals.
So how is your time frame? How do you divide between here and the US?
So I'm here every 2 months. So I do 2-month rotations.
Oh, wow.
So I'm 6 months in Dubai.
Man, that's a lot. That's very good. What is I would say, passing through this journey has I believe, a lot of ups and downs. First of all, 100% I believe when you started off and you start to talk about these things, people tell you what kind of BS you're talking about, all these things. And it led to a couple of failures. If I ask you, what is the favorite failure that you have that you actually grateful for?
So when I was in the sports world, there was this guy who had a massive sports facility, and I wanted to get into it. And I got an opportunity to go meet this guy, and so I drove 2 hours. And I walk in, and literally the night before I sent an email making sure that the meeting was going to be on, and I walk in, and his assistant, I was waiting an hour in the lobby, and his assistant walks in. She goes, "Dr. Daigle," I'm not going to say the guy's name. She's like, but he said that he's not going to be able to make this meeting. And I was like, really? I literally just sent him an email last night, and she goes, well, yeah, he's not going to be able to make it. And I was like, I drove 2 hours. I'll wait till he closes. And so he actually walks out. He tells me this. He says, it's a long road to the top, and I doubt I'll ever see you there.
Oh, shit.
And this is what's so cool about this is that I was so pissed.
Yeah.
So I grab my bag, I drive back 2.5 hours, and I'm like, but this is the crazy thing about this is that 2.5 hour drive back home, that was it. And it was like, you know what? This is how it's going to be.
Yeah.
And I'm going to basically play a boxing match. But I can tell you one thing, though. You can knock my ass down, but I'm going to get back up.
True.
And I promise you, when you get weak, I'm going to hit you right in the fucking throat.
That's the attitude, yeah.
So, no, this is what happened. So I started a computer software company. I make video games for brain rehab. He wanted to purchase it a couple of years later. And so my partner calls me and he goes, "Hey, Kyle, we got this really incredible opportunity to go in." And I was like, I didn't say anything. And I was like, I want to be there.
I want to walk in.
So I walk in and he sees me. And we're talking about all the crazy, incredible things that I can do with the eyes in sports performance. And he's like, I want to buy it. And I was like, fuck no. Fuck no. True. And my partner looks at me and he goes,
"Are you crazy?" Yeah.
He's like, "Dude, this is a big contract." I was like, "I don't give a shit." I was like, fuck no. I grabbed my bag and I was like, "See you at the top." And I walked out. And I remember that drive, 2.5 hour drive back home. Oh, man, I was listening to techno rock music and that right there. But you know what happened is that was actually the start of my career. And, it just basically let me know, Respect. Hey, you know what? Hey, I know it's, my job out there to get results and all I need is an opportunity, but this guy didn't even give me an opportunity. So,
True. What gave you this kind of grit and perseverance?
Man, watching my little brother That right there. When my little brother was going to die, and I watched these doctors do every single thing in their power. I mean, these doctors, this guy, Dr. Wallace, he was working past the time trying to save my brother's life. And I just watched the grit in this doctor, and I was like, this guy exceeded what he was supposed to do. And when you're watching your little brother fighting for his life,
Changes everything.
and that was basically what built my platform.
What's your proudest moment to date?
Whew. I mean, watching an autistic kid be able to speak, man, I think that's probably the coolest thing. I am a father. I got 2 beautiful kids. That's what I'm living for. But then it goes down to taking a business from 0 and now having 3 international businesses that's global. That's pretty good. But, I'm not stopping until I build a hospital.
Phew.
So until I build my own personal hospital.
Where you want to build it?
Here.
I'm sure you're going to make it.
Oh, I know I am.
Absolutely, I'm sure. We're in the Alpha Talks show, and you talk about the alpha brainwaves. How do you define an alpha?
How do I find an alpha?
Yeah, define.
Oh man, alphas, guys that are going to wake up typically 3-4 o'clock in the morning. They're going to goal set. They're going to be visionaries. These guys don't stop. They don't typically sleep very good. These are the most consistent, disciplined guys. These guys aren't going to lose, right? They might fail supposedly, but these guys right there are going to bounce back up, and they're going to figure out how to basically come out on top and 10x it.
Phew. I love the definition. How do you define success for yourself?
Oof. Oh man, how would I define it for myself?
Yeah, because making such an impact. Like a lot of people define success by the freedom, by the money, by. But your impact is way beyond that. Like helping people to walk, helping people to relieve their pain. These are
Yeah, man.
so impactful. So how do you define success for you?
Ooh. I would say this: as long as I can wake up every single day and I love what I do, and I know I'm gonna basically go out there and have an expectation of getting bigger.
True.
So every day I wake up, man, I'm grateful to be alive, and I get a chance to change people's lives. So every day to me is a success, but I'm trying to hit 1 million people a day, basically, with an impact.
Oof, I love that because you're on a 2-month rotation. That means, and it's a rotation, 2 months here, 2 months there, 2 months here. It's hectic. What keeps you pushing that? What keeps you doing this? The hospital?
It is that, but it's actually, man, it's just changing lives. If I can be in the States, by the way, I have 68 countries that fly to see me. So I have patients, and so every week it's someone new. It's a different place, different region, someone's flying to. So when you really split it from you're talking about building a business, it's really smart, right? I have the States, I have North America, South America, I have Australia, and then I'm coming here. And then now I have India, I have Asia, Africa, and Europe. So it's a way for me to be able to really have a bigger global reach.
Of course. What is I would say, we've talked before recording that you had a business mentor and. So of course you have a career and journey where there are a lot of mentors. What is the most, I would say, relevant or strong alpha level advice you've ever had, and when you did it, man, changed everything?
Jay Abrahams.
Oh
I gotta give Jay Abrahams a shout. Jay is incredible. When we went international, man, we had no clue what we were doing. I'm a doctor. And, the advice that Jay told me, he said, I'm going to tell you one thing about business. Everyone always wants to look forward ahead at the future. He said, but to make sure that you grow properly and you never mess up, go back and look what built you. And make sure that you literally lock up every single hole. And he said, well, now when you go forward, there's no holes in your business. Oof. So that means that everyone in the past is coming with you to the future.
True. Oof, I love that.
Yeah, Jay Abrahams, got to give him a shout, man. Jay is incredible.
Of course.
It was a
amazing guy.
Game changer.
Absolutely. We live in an era where a lot of people think that entrepreneurship is trendy, looks amazing from the outside. I want to be an entrepreneur, because you're a doctor and an entrepreneur, a business owner at the end of the day. What kind of, I would say, traits you see in real successful entrepreneurs?
Well, yeah, I'll say this. Guys that I hang out with, A lot of guys like to read. If you don't read, you got to do podcasts, right? You have to learn every day, right? You want to plateau, go sit on the couch, watch Netflix or TV or something like that. Like guys in our world,
True.
these guys are every day it's learning. I believe that the morning routine is by far the most crucial aspect, right? Preparation. So I like to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
But is it related to brain functionality, the waking up early in the morning?
Yeah, well, it's actually, when you look at the circadian rhythm, we're supposed to wake up typically before sunrise.
Okay.
Right? And then really after sundown, we really should go to bed. Not too long, so that we actually can sleep through the night. I think that alphas and, guys that are really, that's not today's society. That's back if we were hunter and gatherers. But the morning routine, I think, is so crucial because you can set this, you can set the whole day based off your morning routine. And this is basically waking up, doing affirmations, affirming to yourself, that, you building yourself up, right? You got to train the brain that you're going to be successful. You're going to win the day. The other thing is actually looking at your goals and your visions, right? Having a blueprint to the future, I think is huge. And then, I do think that people need to exercise. I think that that's a huge thing. You have to basically build your mind, build your health. And that's a huge thing. I think that your morning routine, the better that you get at that, there's a whole, I think we can maybe talk about this, but there's a whole thing called metaphysics, right?
True.
Metaphysics is there's two parts to our brain. So you have your conscious mind, you have your subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is the part of the brain that's going to control, like when you go to sleep at night, how you breathe, right? You're not telling your heart to beat, right? That's your subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is connected to the higher power. All right. The higher power created every single thing in the entire world, right? All right. So if the higher power created you and the higher power created the, everything in the whole universe, how can you go out there and basically tap into what's out there in front of you?
True.
Which you won't, right? It's tapping into the subconscious mind. So how do you tap into the subconscious mind? Brainwaves. Theta and alpha brainwaves. Theta, your brain's going to be calm. So from 4 to 13 hertz. And I'm gonna give everyone a little kind of hack out there. So when I'm looking at when I scan a billionaire's brain, and this guy went from a goose egg and basically completely hustled. When I scan this guy's brain, here's the secret. Here's the magic number: 6 hertz. 6 hertz is a theta brainwave. That right there is almost always green in these guys. And if you ask this guy, when you started your business, did you think it was going to get this big? The guy's like, I knew as long as I never gave up, I was going to basically make it. And that is basically faith. That is trust. But what happens is in the brain, exactly right, is that you can't really make something happen until you actually believe it. But this is the whole thing. You got to believe it here.
True.
So if this right here in belief,
6.
This right here is 6 hertz.
A question. People control the 6 can manage to be on a 6.
Yeah. People can get into theta brainwaves, but you're typically going to see, that's why people tell you, do your prayers or do affirmations first thing in the morning before you go to bed at night, right? And this is exactly what happens. So when you wake up in the morning, or first of all, let me give you the hierarchy of this. So when you're sleeping, your brain goes into a delta brainwave. That's when you're like knocked out, right? It's called REM sleep.
Yeah.
The next brainwave up is theta. And then all of a sudden, you go to bed at night, right? You get drowsy,
True.
and then you go to sleep. That theta brainwave is actually where you're going to see a 6 hertz at. So it's why it's so important to actually, when you wake up in the morning, the very first thing is gratitude and actually looking at like your vision board or affirmations. And this is why you want to do it before you go to bed. And see, a lot of people really during the daytime, right? They try to like meditate, manifest. You can't really do that well in the middle of the day. Unless you're like guy who meditates pretty hard or is like, maybe like into like Buddhism and stuff like that. These guys can meditate all day long and get into a theta brainwave. But if you're like us right now, we're talking, you're trying to hustle, it's kind of hard to get into a super chill, relaxed, almost sleepy state, right?
Wow.
So you're going to get into it first thing when you wake up in the morning and right before you go to bed at night.
Wow. I love that. Is there anything that we missed that you would like to highlight
Man, we talk about sinus infections.
Yeah.
I think that, guys, especially these big business guys that, listen to this podcast that travel in and out of hotel rooms and in and out of different areas that, I think that really if you have health issues and you really want to look at like the future, nasal health, sinus health is huge.
Okay.
And no one really checks for it. And, yeah, so in saying that there's nasal swabs that people can do get tests, but yeah, sinus health is going to be the next whole future into neurological issues.
Absolutely. What would be the last message you want to leave the audience with today?
Whew. If I can cuss, I'd say get your ass up early and first thing set goals.
Fire your brain.
No, really, man, is that I really, it's so cool to be able to take something from zero and build businesses all over the world.
True.
But I can say this, that, someone can take all my knowledge and say, hey, I'm going to replicate. And I'm going to say, I guarantee you can't do it. One is because I'm the most consistent, disciplined person. I will never miss a fucking day.
True. You will never drift.
Yep.
True.
No, won't. And, that's it. You want to basically, punch through something, never stop.
I want to start, go back very quick. When you started this career, a lot of people, even from a family perspective, they tell you why you're going this direction, try to push you back. Maybe it's a very strange area, just a strange field. Nobody heard about. What are you talking about? What waves?
1,000%.
Waves in the brains. Waves in the brains.
Go
to gym.
I come from an oil family.
Oh, really? So absolutely.
Yeah, I come from a pretty wealthy oil family, so I had an opportunity to basically join the family business. I wanted to change lives. So my dad, whenever he found out, he was like, Kyle, what are you freaking thinking, man? Why are you studying so much? I quit watching TV at 18. I started reading books. And my dad literally was like, Kyle, you're going insane. You got to quit reading so much. It was like, no, man, I know what I'm going to do and I know what I have to do to get there.
Is there something somebody has told you that really pissed you off besides this example that you will never, ever forget?
So when I was a kid, I had a speech impediment and I had a hard time speaking. And what happened is I had a parent-teacher conference that my mom went to my teacher. And my teacher told my mom, she said, Miss Daigle, I just think that you should probably accept the fact that your son has a disability. He's probably never going to outgrow it. My mom didn't realize is I was standing right outside the door and the door was open. And I heard that teacher say that, and my mom walked out and she saw me. Mom kind of freaked out and startled, and she goes, did you hear what she said? I heard every damn word she said. And she goes, well, don't listen to that lady. I was like, one day, Mom, I'm going to speak in front of thousands of people. And today, I speak in front of tens of thousands of people.
What age was that?
Second grade.
Oh, what made you that strong from a young age? To say that back
man,
to
dude, when you have a disability, man, people look at you differently.
True.
And deep down inside, I'm a human being. But, I knew I was going to have to put time and effort in. And then when you start kind of comparing other people to you,
True.
The thing is you can't outwork me.
I love that. We have a section in the Alpha Talks. It's called the Alpha Talks Memoir, where what we do is, after we stop recording, the Alpha guest write his experience in the show, and also do one thing which is very interesting is that you write a question to the next Alpha guest. It's a way of making the Alpha guests connect to each other, but nobody knows who's writing to who, which means that you will answer a question unknown. I don't even know what's this question from the previous Alpha guest. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Oh, that's from our friend, by the way. How is your heart?
How's my heart?
Yeah.
Oof. I'm an emotional guy, man. I do not like to see people suffer. So walking into the Dubai Mall, seeing the kid in a wheelchair and looking at the mom's face pushing, that right there's my drive.
But a question, have you ever walked through a mall or any place where you saw something like that, a person in a wheelchair, and you said I can fix that? And you went to them and said I know how to fix that.
Because of the sensitivity of people, I don't ever approach anyone. Although I do pray for a lot of people, and when I see people in wheelchairs, man, or people suffering, I can read facial features. So whenever I walk into a mall and I see someone like sitting there, and you can tell that they're like super depressed.
True.
I recognize that.
It's really been a pleasure. I really loved every minute of the conversation, the interview. It's an absolutely, again, a new area to me. And as alphas, we always want to learn more. And it's really an area that I would love to discover much, much more. Then I believe down the line, in your second rotation to Dubai this year, we'll have another talk where you can actually share with our audience much more knowledge and details about this particular area and the brain health and the brain activity and how to get better in life, not only from a pain perspective, but from a performance perspective. Because before the show, we have talked and we had a conversation that even if you're reading books and you're hustling so hard, there is a ceiling or something limiting you to grow. And you can find the answer in the brain. If people watching us today and would love to connect with you, what is the easiest way that they can connect with you?
So I'm pretty active on my own personal Instagram. I like to be in control. So people can find me at Dr. Kyle Daigle on
I'll leave it in the
Instagram.
description, of course.
Yep. And then if you're in the region and you want to come see, it's neurosolution.ae.
Perfect.
That's my clinic website here. And then people that want to see my personal website, it's drkyledaigle.com.
It's been a pleasure to have you. I'm sure we're going to see you in the clinic in Dubai soon. And it's been a pleasure. And thank you for coming today.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me.
Thank you. That wraps another inspiring episode of today's show. I hope that this episode has ignited your inner alpha and left you feeling inspired, motivated, and ready to conquer any challenge that comes your way. Remember, alphas aren't born, they're made. It isn't about dominating others, it's about embracing your authenticity, leading with integrity, and making a positive impact on the world. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the Alpha Talks on your favorite podcast platform. Leave us a review and share the podcast with your fellow alphas. Also connect with us on social media at Seif El Hakim. Share your thoughts, insight, and stories of personal and business growth with us. Let's create a movement of alphas supporting one another. The world needs more alphas like you exactly. Until next time, stay bold, stay driven, and stay alpha.